why don't you go out there and pluck your guitars, spit in your harmonica.
That's how that works.
Climb atop your chopper and ride across the Badlands as you join Brian Vaughn, Spencer Hendricks, and I, Van Lee, for another edition of Renegade, starring Lorenzo Lamas. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter for this guy.
Tomato.
Spencer Hendricks, how are you this week?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that we're going to talk about more than just that first episode of Renegade. We didn't quite cover it, so now we're going to get the rest of it.
Yeah, we sure are. Brian Vaughn.
I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk about Hard Rider, which is this episode. We already heard the intro song. Some honking on Bobo happens during that.
Yeah. And would you agree there are hidden depths to plumb here? Like we didn't quite get it last time, right?
Yeah, the emotional depths of Renegade. How many motorcycle scenes can you fit into 42 minutes? There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
When you purchase the rights to one song, how many times can you play it in one episode?
Right, and what percentage of the episode is that, and how much overlap with the motorcycle scenes is there?
These questions and more will be answered on today's show.
Thank God.
And yet again, we have an awful lot to cover, so I'm going to skip the pleasantries past this and say let's dive right into this.
We don't need to talk about Lorenzo Lamas' past or anything like that this time.
We already covered that one.
There's a lot we don't have to talk about this
Thank
time.
goodness. Instead, we can just talk about motorcycles.
Yep.
And don't worry, this episode of Renegade does not take place in a parallel universe like the other one
No,
did.
this
And
one's
Johnny
more
Cash
real.
is nowhere to be seen.
No.
Somehow.
I don't know if that's a positive or
You
negative.
can
at
feel
this
that he's
point.
out there.
He's with you in spirit, no matter what. This is technically before
Yes.
he was on Renegade.
2
because
years
this
before.
is season 2, episode 12, Hard Rider, as you mentioned earlier. And you know, I have just one question to ask you, gentlemen. You know what
Okay.
that question might be?
No.
Who do you love?
Whoever's decision it was to put Who Do You Love in this episode of Renegade 37 times.
That's right. That's the question this show asks time and time again because clearly they got the rights, decided they were going to play it 35 times, and we get to hear it 35 times, but only in the little snippet where we hear the main chorus. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
What, are you going to pay for the verse?
Well, this episode begins with that song, George Thorogood's raspy voice asking that question, as Reno Raines, our hero, rides his hog with his tight jeans, lack of shirt, and black vest. Reno's
That's to
keeping
keep
it
the
cool.
bugs off him and stuff, too. Like, I mean, you don't want to go completely shirtless.
You just want to make sure your shoulders don't get any bugs on them.
Plus, if you see a guy with vest tan lines, you know he rules.
Is that the equivalent of like the hardcore bikini tan line, vest tan lines on a guy?
It's cooler.
It is much cooler,
Yeah.
I'll give you that. So Reno's keeping it real cool, riding on America's wide open highways throughout the Badlands, when a fellow biker comes riding up alongside him, and the two share a moment of just screaming at each other while driving 60 miles an hour over the sounds of their bikes. The friendly new biker is decked out in leather, sunglasses, and a really cool do-rag.
Pretty good goatee, too.
Reno and this guy trade positions a few times. Eventually, the biker gives him the signal for the last ride. Chugs along his way. There's a problem, though. Coming the opposite direction's a big ol' 18-wheeler. It's got
Honk,
a cab
honk.
over Pete with a reefer on. But the car running behind it isn't too keen on the slow pace of this old big rig.
You think that's a 53-footer?
I think it'd be about a 53-footer. Certainly no bigger than 59-foot if you just run into 59 is a total number. That car ain't too keen on the slow pace of this big rig, despite the fact that it was rolling up on I-44 with like a rocket sled on rails. So he decides to pass the rig on this 2-lane highway. Now our biker decides, much like Sammy Hagar, he's not slowing down for nobody.
No.
And when that car doesn't back off, the biker goes right between him and takes a nasty dive right on the highway. Renegade, our hero, stops to check on him. Ooh, he's in it bad. He can only master a hearty, "Christ, did you see that?" Now cue the intro. Do you guys remember what the intro sounded like, the voiceover? Well, now you will.
He was a cop and good at his job, but he committed the ultimate sin and testified against other cops gone bad. Cops that tried to kill him, but got the woman he loved instead. Framed for murder, now he prowls the Badlands, an outlaw hunting outlaws, a bounty hunter, a renegade.
I really like how they have to clarify he was good at his job. He's a cop and good at his job.
Whatever you might think about his abilities to perform at work.
Now that we've got that pesky plot out of the way, we can
It
get
is-
into our
yeah, it's
cool
pesky.
episode.
I do want to say one more thing about that cold open scene that leads us into the plot of our episode, which is at some point during it, and I don't know who, it's just in my notes, someone says to someone else, Nice ride, brother.
And the other one agrees. I think that's the other biker.
It
And
is
then-
a nice ride.
And the other guy goes, "You too, man." But of course, again, it's over the sound of the engines because they're driving down the
Yeah,
highway.
so they're kind of yelling.
And every motorcycle ever is fucking noxious. Every single one of them is so loud, and the person riding it is doing it just because they want someone to go, "Look at me. Look how loud and cool I am." I don't like motorcycle people. I'm sorry.
For those counting, also, there are the same amount of snakes in the theme song this time around.
I'm glad you updated us on that. That's good. Next up, we actually get some establishment shots showing the bright lights and casinos of none other than Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, that's where we are.
Yeah, that's it. Now, meanwhile, some down-to-earth pop blues is playing in the background, and we find ourselves in a bar full of people as a complete doofus of a man in an oversized blue dress shirt with a t-shirt underneath approaches a woman in this bar and busts out a pretty smooth pickup line.
So, have you ever seen the sunrise from the top of the Hoover Dam?
Not a morning person.
How about a moonrise?
Well, it's already up.
You ever seen a guy bet a $100 roll at a crap table, make 10 passes in a row?
No. But you know, I just saw a guy make one pass and lose.
Woo!
That's pretty good.
Man.
Yeah,
She's clever.
She let him have it there. I gave her a little bit of a nod and maybe kind of like, that kind of a thing as I was watching.
Struck him
I mean,
to
if
the
you
bone.
If you tried that hard on his end, you deserve that. Like, he
Yeah.
what was like 3 lines? Like,
I'm only a little bit into the first page of my questionnaire, ma'am.
yeah. Does he have these prepared? Like, it's disgusting. Once the first one doesn't work, go away.
Yeah,
that's
move on.
Really, like that's why girls hate us. Is because we don't stop.
That's one of the reasons.
Wisdom right there.
Also, ugly is the main one.
That contributes. Sure.
Not just us. I mean, like all guys. we're
Oh,
ugly.
we've said on the show, men are gross and hideous. It's true.
But Bobby Six Killer's in this show, and that guy.
Good point.
I mean,
Big
all
old
I'm
handsome
saying,
lug.
If you see a tall glass of tea sitting out on a table like that, you take a drink.
You want to take a sip of that for sure, if not a chug. Well, annoyed, this woman takes off and the doofus comes after her, except a big meaty hand holds the guy back, and we see who ends up being a bodyguard of this woman, telling the doofus that she said no, it's time to move on.
Oh, you mean that guy?
That guy. Mm-hmm.
That guy.
Now, our woman is at the coat check trying to find her coat when a giant Australian woman also starts looking for her coat, and the two strike up a conversation. Here we find out the first woman's name is Rebecca Dalton, and the two ladies leave together with the bodyguard trailing them. The Aussie asks who it is, and Rebecca explains, "Hey, my dad's a little overly cautious." They continue on their way chatting when eventually the Australian woman asks, "What happened to the bodyguard?" Rebecca says, "Oh, he must have stopped to light up a smoke. He knows I hate cigarettes." The Australian woman kind of laughs at this and immediately lights up a cigarette and blows
Bam.
smoke right in Rebecca's
Yeah.
face.
Here it
Which
is.
at first I was like, oh, you're just really cool and you're going to reiterate that
Power
point.
move, right? Yeah.
But no.
No, she blows the smoke in Rebecca's face. Rebecca turns away because she's grossed out by smoke. And then the Aussie girl punches her in the gut and slaps her unconscious.
I actually got this. Like, I got the sense that the smoke was like a knockout gas of some sort from that scene.
Oh, man, I
She's
hope.
the penguin.
Yeah, it was something weird like that. Also, would you guys like a bodyguard?
Sure.
No, I feel like, again, that would be a privacy issue. They'd just always be around.
But
Yeah.
they hover back there. If you had one, who would it be? Would you want Kevin Costner? I hear he's a good one.
I'll take Kevin Sorbo.
My dad had the Bodyguard soundtrack on CD
Of course he
because
did.
he liked Whitney Houston. I think
He probably wished he would have been her bodyguard.
Yeah.
I'm
he
assuming.
did. He definitely did. As someone who was the bodyguard at many celebrity golf tournaments, I'm sure that he
That's right,
he
I
would have
forgot
been
about that.
And
interested
this is
in such
somehow
a
a
job.
real thing that you
Yeah.
just said,
That-
which is great.
That is definitely a real thing. That's how my father met Joe DiMaggio. A story for a different day. But my bodyguard, I think, would probably be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Or, yeah, I'll stick with that. I think he has my best interests in mind.
That's fair. And your dad, if he were the bodyguard in this, he also would have to stop because he would be smoking too.
Yeah. I mean, he would have just laughed when he was told not to.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, a big red van pulls up behind Rebecca after she's been slapped unconscious. Some other Australian guy wearing a Letterman's jacket pops out of the van and grabs Rebecca, holding her while the Australian woman gives her yet another slap.
None of these people are played by Paul Hogan, if you were wondering.
Amazingly, no. And no Reginald Vell Johnson either driving
No.
the car. Although there is a driver who we'll talk about a little bit about later on. The guy stuffs Rebecca in the van and says to the Australian woman, hold on. God, you're beautiful when you're angry. And immediately...
I'm always beautiful.
Yes, that's what she responds.
No, I was just telling you that in general about myself.
Accurate. Now the van doors close and drive off into the distance. Next scene, we see the unmistakably meaty face of Bobby Six Killer, Native American bounty hunter and friend to Reno Raines.
You'll
And
never
this is
believe what he's doing.
good Bobby Six Killer.
Yeah,
too,
this is
by
the
way.
real guy, everybody's best friend.
He's back, yeah.
He-
I was scared last time.
He does that really cool guy thing where he answers the phone but pretends to be an answering machine message.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, this is Bobby Six Killer, Six Killer Industries, Six Killer. Yeah, I said that right.
Enterprises.
Enterprises.
God.
I'm sorry.
It's like you're not even familiar with the man's body of work.
I'm too excited. I'm familiar with his body.
Oh.
He hears a familiar voice ring out saying, Bobby, if you're there, pick up. This is John Dalton. As our guest star's unmistakable mug makes an appearance, it's Mr. Las Vegas himself, Wayne Newton.
Oh, okay. Where should we start with this?
Well, I wrote he brought his unmoving black hole helmet hair with him as well, and I know you'd like to discuss the jet black hairpiece he has.
Okay, look, I'm getting older. We're all getting older, and with age comes a certain amount of changes, and follically, that's certainly the case. I am grayer by the minute as minutes pass in my life. And have I dyed my hair? Yes, one time, but it was actually when it was browner than this, and I was trying to get it to be the same color as my beard. And it just made me look scary to myself, though, for some reason. I looked more masculine. It was weird. Anyway, you kind of have to accept certain things, like my hair going gray. Well, Wayne Newton, whenever his hair started to go gray, which who knows when it was, well before this episode of Renegade.
1951.
Yeah. He said, you know what? No, I refuse to accept this result, and I'm going to actually just pour vials of ink on top of my head.
He seeked out a copier and got the toner out of it, and that's what he put on
and
his
just
scalp.
rubbed it in his scalp. There's a scene later on in the episode where Wayne Newton is wearing some sort of a black puffy shirt, and it looks like he has like a version of his hair on as a shirt, and then also that as his hair.
You know, that look.
Yeah.
Well, let me
also,
ask you
it's
this.
Wayne Newton. His head is round.
Well,
I don't
what
know.
do you guys know about Wayne Newton? Spencer?
Nothing.
Did you know who he was at all?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. Actually, this is so funny. We were watching this episode. I actually didn't know we were, well, I shouldn't say it this way. I knew we were going to be doing it in a different order, but this is the, chronologically speaking, first episode, so I watched this first. I didn't know Johnny Cash was going to be in the next one. And all I could see from this guy was that he had the vibe of Johnny Cash, and I had no idea that Johnny Cash was in the next one. So that's so fucking weird. It's so weird. It's just, it's the hair and just kind of the swagger, and it's some sort of, it must be like the musician feel, the vibe they're trying to give off that I picked up. I don't know what it was. And then there's only so many kind of styles you could have from that time period that these guys, Wayne Newton and Johnny Cash, were a big deal. So I picked that up from him somehow, and I was like, he's giving me off a feel. Like I felt that about him. And it's so weird that the very next episode, Johnny Cash was just in it. But no, I don't know a thing about Wayne Newton.
I do. Okay, so Wayne
The
Newton.
grin that passed over his face.
Well, I have old person history with Wayne Newton, which is I have attended events in the Wayne Newton Theater in Branson, Missouri.
Branson, that's the thing. We're stuck near Branson.
Yeah,
And that's a country music haven.
Wayne Newton's like a staple. And Wayne Newton, the best way I would describe his musical stylings is grandparent music, which it's just kind of crooning / you get a little country feel, a little bit of lounge feel, just whatever's the most boring. And then between songs, you kind of have a little bit of banter, but it's pre-planned, and you have some jokes that would not be out of place. Again, being told by a comedian at an old folks home.
I don't think I could add any more to that. That pretty much covered Wayne Newton exactly. I didn't know a whole lot about him. I couldn't tell you I can now. I couldn't tell you a single song he had, but I knew he was a lounge singer type.
Yeah.
Like, I think of Tom Jones when I think of Wayne Newton, and I like Tom Jones. Tom Jones is funny to me, and there's some catchy songs, like Sex Bomb. But anyway, Wayne Newton to me
is that the
just,
not unusual guy?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
I
one.
thought so.
And it isn't.
It turns out it's not. So it was fascinating to see Wayne Newton, and I didn't know a whole lot about him. I just knew he was a performer, and it's probably not someone I would like to watch perform.
I don't think he would tickle your fancy.
My Vancy?
Or your Vancy. And in this episode, we also find out Wayne Newton is the most important, most wealthy, most powerful man in the entire world.
Yeah, pretty
Well,
much.
he's probably not far off, honestly. I mean, I'm sure he... is he alive?
Good
Yeah.
question.
I'm
might
sure
be.
his net worth is or was something
Pretty high.
substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a lot of money. I'm sure he was a very powerful man. If he's dead
Like
now...
Like or... He's
He could
79.
lift a whole
He's
man
still
over his head.
alive.
Man, I
Good for him.
would have thought he would be a lot older than 70. I thought like 179. Like, that's pretty young, honestly, for what I expected.
You know, he has some nicknames like the Midnight Idol or
Yep.
Mr. Las Vegas.
Oh, you should have told me. Now
Yeah.
now I know who he is.
Oh, that clears it up. Well, we should get back to this rundown.
No.
think
Let's talk
we
about Wayne
should.
Newton for a while.
I think we should, but we need something to transition us from part 1 to part 2.
Okay.
A segue?
It sounds like you have an idea.
Maybe. Let's see what's this little box in my pocket. Let's go ahead and pop open this little box. So it's
Now, you could have just put a generic harmonica sound on
no.
Way better.
I
We had
ordered
to
a
have-
harmonica.
there. We had to have the undo that.
You had to honk, personally honk on Bobo to get us between scenes like the show does.
See, there you go.
Totally worth it.
Now, Wayne Newton, as John Dalton, says, "Bobby, I need you here for a job." And he sounds serious.
Someone needs to move my hair.
Six Killer says, "I'll be there in a day." And Dalton tells him he's got his private jet waiting for him to get him there. We see a jet take off, a skyline, get to hear a cool flute. It shows that time has passed and Six Killer is now in Vegas talking to Dalton.
Yeah.
It's here that we find out that Dalton's daughter was kidnapped. We knew that because we knew Rebecca Dalton. I pieced it together. I'm smart. I watched Columbo.
And she mentions
I know
her
what to look
dad
for.
and her dad being, uptight about her, hiring security. So obviously it's a wealthy person.
Well, the kidnappers have left a note on a $1 million slot machine downstairs, and the note says, "We have your daughter. No police, or we'll know. Instructions coming." Six Killer asks why Dalton didn't call the cops or the FBI, and Dalton tells him he couldn't, but he knows Six Killer's the best in the biz. Money's no problem. You name your price.
Why is it, and this is every hostage situation in a movie or TV show, but why could they not contact authorities at all?
The police, his argument was the police, you know what they'll do. They'll just screw it up. That's what he said about the police. Kind of accurate, right?
Yeah, but
Then Six Killer asks, what about the FBI? And he goes, well, look, the federal government's been after me for years. I'm assuming he's been
Tax
cheating,
evasion,
tax evasion, something.
something.
They'd be looking to take advantage of me. So he's afraid to do it, that they're going to hold it over him as ransom.
kind of in this moment. Later on, there's a lot of playing with Rebecca's mind that the hostage takers do, saying, oh, your father doesn't care about you or whatever. This kind of bears
shows
that out
it.
a little bit.
At least a little. Yeah.
I'm in money trouble maybe, so I'm not willing to talk to any federal agencies.
Mhm. Our next scene begins with a gravely and ornery voice angrily screaming about wanting to get out of this hospital. But an elderly nurse is arguing with the biker from the beginning, saying he can't leave against doctor's orders in case something happens to him. He says he ain't gonna sue the hospital. Look at me. But the nurse just keeps insisting he can't leave alone. Now, the brick of meat that is Lorenzo Lamas as Reno Reigns, a.k.a. the Renegade, a.k.a. Vince Black, steps into frame telling the nurse, you can't keep him. Anyways, my brother, I'll sign for
I
it.
kind of expected for some reason Renegade to be the voice of reason here and say like, look, man, I know you're tough as nails, but we got to obey doctor's orders. But instead he's like, no, I'm with Goatee Paint Huffer guy. Let's get the fuck out of here.
No, yeah, take the medical side. Like, also, your brain's fucked up. You should probably stay for a little while and have the nurse take care of you.
No.
Or maybe he and the nurse get into a little bit of martial arts. Maybe that would have been a perfect thing right there.
And she kicks his ass like Johnny Cash just did, too.
And then they're both in the hospital.
If there's anything
He and
we
the
know
brother.
about Reno Reigns, it's that he does not win fights.
No, ever. It continues in this episode.
And I see now in this episode why the narration finds it
Honestly.
necessary to tell us he does a good job at some point in his career.
I was okay with the fight he lost that we're getting into because it was like 100 of them, so it was fair. If he would have won that, I would have been like, okay.
But look
All
at
right, you
those
know what? I
guys.
like this show until now. That was
I'm
what I
done
was
with
going to say.
Well, we already watched an elderly man who looks like, kind of a crescent roll take him down previously.
You know, I didn't talk about this in the first episode when we covered it. I wanted to talk on it now. With Renegade, I remember thinking going into it that we're going to see Chuck Norris in Lorenzo Lamas' shape. We're going to see a guy who never fucks up, never fails. He's loud, he's brash, he just fights his way through everything. Everything's perfect for him. And I was surprised we didn't get that. We got more Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, philosophical, thinks things through, and does get beaten up.
I don't even think I'd go that far, because this isn't, like, Patrick Swayze has that. He's got undeniable Patrick Swayze charisma.
Sure, yeah.
Lorenzo Lamas has none.
No.
He is just a blank slate of a human being who happens to be in good physical condition, who rides a motorcycle around, makes only mistakes, and everyone's just kind of like, huh? I don't know.
Were you
It's a weird
surprised by
show.
that? Did you expect to see like what I said?
No,
Okay.
I agree with you.
Oh, okay.
I did expect to see more of like an infallible lead character, not a lead character that I'm oftentimes unsure if they're the lead character.
What about you, Spencer? What did you think of his presentation?
I was not impressed. I thought like I mentioned it earlier before we started recording. He's got the hair, he's got the bod. He's got nothing else.
No.
He's got the look.
Well, these two leave the hospital, and our biker friend reveals his name is Max, and he ain't politically correct, but he does pay his debts.
That's what he says too. This isn't Van
Verbatim.
paraphrasing or being fun. That's what Max says. I ain't politically correct.
And look, you know what? He owes Renegade.
No payment required.
You're making me feel guilty. Come on, there's got to be a beer someplace in this town.
Don't you think you ought to make sure you're over that concussion before you start drinking?
Hell, there's not enough brain cells left up here to damage. I'll tell you what, why don't you ride with us?
Us?
Yeah, my boys are on their way here now. Hell on wheels. Gentlemen ramblers like myself.
Okay, a couple things here.
Couple
Just
things,
a couple.
at least.
First, I want to say that when watching this show, I realize now, it was like my third viewing when I was writing the rundown or whatever, that he says Hell on Wheels. He says the name of the gang. I didn't hear that the first time through. I didn't see that, Hell on Wheels, until later in the episode. We see the biker gang, and they all have jackets.
Yeah,
that
they
say that on the back.
coordinated. They probably went to the same print shop and got a deal in bulk.
The problem is the on is not clearly visible in a lot of scenes, so I thought their
Hell
gang was
Wheels.
called the Hell Wheels.
Which is cooler.
That's awesome. So I'm going to continue calling them the Hell Wheels as we go along. And then second, Max is played by an actor named Jan Michael Vincent. All right,
Yeah.
are you familiar with Jan Michael Vincent?
I
No.
am.
Okay, Jan Michael Vincent, let me just first get this out here, was the star of the 1980s awesome as fuck show on network TV, Airwolf, which is about a helicopter pilot who uses his helicopter to stop crime.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, am I right?
It's really cool.
You know who else was in it? Ernest Borgnine. He
Yeah.
was the like friend, the partner or whatever of the whole thing. And Ernest Borgnine's a very old German man who is kind of bubbly, but also very, very, very strange. Now, Jan Michael Vincent was getting paid $200,000 an episode for Airwolf in the 80s. And at the time, he was the highest paid actor in television.
I would imagine. That's a lot of money.
He's not a good dude. In the years since, he had trouble with drugs, alcohol. He's been married like 5 times, and each marriage ended with him violently hurting his wife. He's a scumbag.
Wow.
But he continued to have jobs, albeit they became Renegade-like jobs through like the 2000s.
Yeah, that's kind of incredible because
Mhm.
I really thought that he had washed out before that. I feel like at least his real life experience prepared him for his role as Max in Hell on Wheels in Renegade. I had in my notes also that for some reason Jan Michael Vincent looks like, I don't know, like a sick Bill Burr, but
Okay, that's good, yeah.
but who does the blue collar comedy tour instead.
I said he looks like old man Rowdy Roddy Piper, but not as defeated. Like Roddy Piper, older in his life,
Yeah.
he realized he was about to die because his body was screwed up and
Still wore the kilt though.
He still wore the kilt. The wrestling company screwed him over, took all his money, whatever. But this guy's gruff as hell, and he's, oh man, he leaned into the role wearing his A-shirt and with his big belly and his belt buckle all tucked
Has he
in.
ever been to Frogtown like Roddy Piper has?
He might have been. He might have been born in Frogtown based on what I've seen there.
I
So
was born in Frogtown.
that was what would
Batman.
break first, the motorcycle or this Australian man. Reno then gets a phone call in the middle of the conversation with Max, and it's Six Killer telling him to get his ass to Vegas and stop by the Babylon Hotel because John Dalton needs his help.
And if somebody says John Dalton in this episode, people jump.
They listen.
I've got a lot of notes about how powerful John Dalton is.
He's like the kingpin from the Spider-Man video games and comics or whatever. Neither of you understands that, but I get it. Max and Reno share one of those big man biker hand grab shake things where you don't, it's almost like you're arm wrestling, but you just wiggle your arms a little.
So kind of like the Hercules handshake.
A little bit, but more vertical. Like a vertical Hercules handshake.
Yeah, the Hercules one is
There's
very
all kinds
plainer.
of ways to touch another man without it being
Without it being queer. Max says, hey, I still owe you one, and you've got my undying gratitude. As Reno heads off to Vegas, we see a familiar red van pulling up to an abandoned barn house, and our Australian criminals pull up with Rebecca Dalton tied up and in tow. She says, just call my father. He'll pay them whatever you want. There's no reason to hurt me. The two from down under act like asses, eventually pointing an assault rifle at Rebecca and pulling the trigger, but it's not loaded, and we hear the click of the gun. I want to get this out of the way first. They don't actually name the Australian characters. They actually call them several names throughout the episode. So in honor of that, I want to name them so I don't have to constantly keep saying Australian woman or Aussie woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I will call them the first names they call themselves, which is in a scene coming up, Mark and Bobby. Or, more appropriately, Mac and Babby.
Mac and why name someone else Bobby when the main character of the show, Bobby Sixkiller, is named Bobby?
It's not a great decision.
Was that the biker part where they got abducted, and they thought they were getting abducted, and it was like the shrimp and the Barbie sort of joke?
It's from that one.
Yeah.
Mac bends down, talks to Rebecca, tells her, hey, if you're good and cooperate, I'll take off your handcuffs, but then you need to take off something for me. And she, hearing this, goes, what?
Yeah,
Come on.
What is this, too? This is another... I mean, this still goes on, but there always has to be like a thread of sexual violence in even something as silly as this.
Particularly in the 90s.
Yeah,
Because
the
it's
80s,
exciting.
90s.
Yeah,
It's
what
exciting.
you want. You get all
your heart racing.
revved up for it, yeah.
Revved up,
The stakes are... I didn't mean to make a motorcycle pun there.
Reno's on his way to Vegas, and we hear one more song. It is Who Do You Love by George Thorogood and the Destroyers, is that right?
I don't know, like the Flaming Bird Band or something.
The Good Old Boys or something like
Young
that.
Bloods.
Reno drives past some bikers headed the other way, and they all do the biker fist shake thing with one another.
Solidarity.
Renegade pulls up to the Babylon Hotel, parks his motorcycle right in front of the door, and a valet says, hey, you can't park that there. But he goes, I'm here to see John Dalton.
Oh, shit.
And
No, you can.
At that point, the valet actually simultaneously shit and came in his pants.
And
And
says, you need this ticket.
Yeah, he was like, whatever, I'll do anything you ask.
That's the goal, is to be feared and, I guess, something that a sex goddess sort of thing. Like, you want to make people fear you and also be in love with you at the same time.
And have residencies in both Las Vegas and the Las Vegas of hell, Branson.
the two places.
That's
There's
it, nowhere
the
else. Reno does head into the casino then, wearing his patented black vest with no shirt on. And at some point, he puts on his skin-tight white long-sleeve T-shirt underneath the vest because as he makes it to
got
Dalton's
chilly.
office, he's got that on. He thought, I need to be professional. I can still wear my vest, but I need to wear a skin-tight white long-sleeve shirt.
He still gets the idea of the muscles, but they're not just out.
The guys get introduced to one another, and the second they make it in Dalton's desk, the phone rings, and it's Mac, the kidnapper, on the other line. He tells the trio to go to the dancer's dressing room, and there's something waiting for them. It's here in the dressing room that Renegade, John Dalton, and Bobby Sixkiller find Rebecca's clothes on a mannequin, while several feathered women put on their makeup. Sixkiller asks them to leave the room, and they're all like snide about it. It's like, well, just get out of the way. It's John Dalton. I mean, am I right?
The most important man in America.
That has ever existed. They find a note which says, you have 2 hours to send one man to Baxter, Nevada, alone with $2 million, where the lovely girl who wore these comes home one limited time. It's, of course, Rebecca's clothes. The guys know their time is short, and they prepare to jump into action.
And there's a little guitar sting that switches scenes here. I thought that was fun.
Then, was it this? Yeah, this is the episode where they have the bumper in between the commercial breaks, where it's just the title card. It says Renegade, and you just hear and the guitar
and you
twangs.
don't get that in the season 4 episode.
You don't get it in most of them. This was the only one I saw that of all the ones I looked at. All the 5 I looked at.
That's one way to put what you did with these horrible episodes.
I was hoping it was more, too. I was like, I have watched this whole show, and that never happened.
Next up, we find Mark and Bobby driving their open-door Jeep to the gas station. And side note, when Katie was watching this with me, she saw the Jeep and said something that made me laugh hysterically. She said, "We're too cool for doors." And that made me think of Jeep people like being offended by every door they see.
How they feel that having a Jeep is its own form of culture.
It is, yeah.
Because you have
to
to do
those
the hand
people.
signal, and like Justin Hughes, our good friend, does. He had a Jeep, and he would tell me when he passes other Jeeps, he does a special Jeep hand signal.
I believe it, yeah.
They're
My cousin has a Jeep, and he talked about how that is a huge thing. Like, once you have a Jeep, like, you're in that community.
You're part of that group.
There's no
Yeah,
personality trait like you and I bought the same thing.
That's super weird, too, and it's also impractical because I was in that thing, and you have to zip the windows down when you go through a drive-through. It's not practical. I don't like it.
It was a not rite of passage, but every year.
You have to get a Jeep before you're a man.
Before your 13th birthday, you have to have sex with a Jeep.
No, Justin Hughes, who has the Jeep, every summer and every winter, there would be one time where you go, "Hey, can you come over and help me with the Jeep?" We had to put the hard top on
I
in the winter.
participated
say
in this.
no.
You did it a couple times.
I would say no.
And then you had to take it. I did it for like 7 straight years. No joke. Mark gets out to fill up the tank, and we're introduced to what might be my favorite character in all of Renegade. His name is Breezer, and he's supposed to be the badass leader of the Hell Wheels, but instead he's just some beer gut having, mulleted, toothless, gray-haired, mom jeans wearing man with way too much energy.
He's like 52 and
Too old, but he's big. I'll give him that.
There are people who have done coke, and then there's this guy. Presumably.
He starts to flirt with Bobby when Mark interrupts them, and we get this awesome interaction.
Now bugger off.
Bugger off? Aren't you quaint? I love these people! Let me guess. You're the shrimp and she's the Barbie?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, her name is Barbie. Barbie, say hello to the barnyard animals.
Hello, barnyard animals.
You see, over here we've got a pig on a hog, and that's a cat with a dog, and this guy over here looks a bit like a horse, and you're standing behind the horse. So I guess that makes you a horse's ass.
Whoa! Woo! What a burn.
Holy
Hold on, I need
shit.
to fan myself.
Breezer doesn't care for this one bit. When you piss off Breezer,
And you don't want to, because
Breezer's a bruiser.
Breezer is a true wild card. You don't know how he'll react in any given situation. It might not be in line with what anyone else is thinking or wanting.
He's not especially intimidating, however. Like, I was never scared of him.
When he looks like he's going to have a heart attack at any moment because he's eating too much Cheese Whiz in his life.
Yeah, the thing about, but it's not like Breezer isn't like, chronically overweight. Breezer is like,
here's Brian defending Breezer.
Someone's uncle, and he's just like really out of shape, but because he just doesn't do anything, but he still talks a lot of shit. I don't know. Breezer is a very specific type of character. Oh, but also, again, on a lot of drugs and has a temper and an anger problem.
And wants what he wants and usually gets it, apparently. Breezer doesn't care for all this. He tells Mark, "I'm going to kick your ass back to Australia."
Kick your butt back to Australia.
You're right, kick your butt.
Okay, well, even Breezer has his limits.
I even put that note, I don't think he could kick his butt. That's what I put down there. Because we just talked about it. He's not going to do much physical. But go ahead.
At best, Mark is like, "Oh, I don't want to hurt this guy," and holds back too much. That's the best case
But he's the
scenario
kind
for
of guy
Breezer.
who will kidnap a woman for ransom, so
Sure.
you assume holding back
and
is
accidentally steal millions of dollars,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. We'll find out. Go ahead, man, tell us.
We find out what kind of guy Mock is here as he gets the upper hand on Breezer, telling the others to back away or he's going to stab him right in his artery in his leg. Mark pours gasoline all over Breezer's bike, and Bobby whips out her lighter to threaten to burn them all to death.
That's the best thing is how the gasoline is what scares all the bikers
They're
away.
like,
They're
"Oh,
like, oh
no."
shit, don't burn my bike.
He might hurt a bike.
Well, Mark says to them, "This isn't a country, it's a theme park."
True.
The two jump in their van, backing over Breezer's bike and driving off, and the Hell Wheels are pissed. Next, we see Six Killer giving Reno the cash in front of the casino. There's a whole bit about getting the money out of I didn't even include it.
Yeah.
But
Why
it's
not?
like comic relief, and anyway, he gets the money. I thought it was humorous, but
It's another bit designed to show how powerful John Dalton is, that he can get the casino to just give Bobby Six Killer $2 million in cash.
Yeah.
well, it's his casino.
Yeah.
And look, that lady gets a promotion out of it, so it
Yeah,
all
she
ends up
does.
great. Six Killer gives Reno that cash in front of the casino. He says he thinks about life, and he's like, what if I would have put all this money down on red? And Reno has a snort.
Oh, it's great.
Like a sharp
If
comeback.
you would have bet it,
Yeah.
you'd have bet it, double zero.
Double greens, double zeros, or something like
it'd
that.
be
yeah.
on you and whatever the daughter's name is.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
He definitely burns him there.
Well, Reno reveals that Cheyenne, who's in real life is the wife of Lorenzo Lamas, but she's not in the episode. In the show, she's the sister of Bobby Sixkiller, despite looking not at all like Bobby Sixkiller. Anyway, Cheyenne says, hey, here's some info on the kidnappers, gives Reno a bunch of sheets. Reno says, hey, these guys are the real deal. The computer at Interpol tells them that they would hit once in one country, kidnapping someone important, get the cash, leave, and never return. That was their MO.
Man, that's cool that Interpol has a computer now, though.
Just the one, and they have to share it. Reno saddles up the cash and heads to Baxter, Nevada, everyone's favorite travel
It's really
destination.
confusing having a character named Reno in a Nevada-based episode.
Yeah, that's true. We next find Rebecca and Bobby talking, and Rebecca just doesn't understand why they're doing this to her. Bobby reveals that her parents spent their whole lives bowing and shuffling to pampered pigs like her and her father, revealing that she's tired of the hierarchy. Mark wanders into the scene and asks what's going on, and Bobby replies, girl talk. But I don't think that's right.
I don't think so either. I don't think girls usually talk about that kind of thing.
They weren't talking
or
about
anyone.
gynecologists.
From what we've seen specifically on The King of Queens, that is true.
They didn't mention Judge Reinhold at once.
Also, why in every normal show, just show that's on a network, are the bad guys disadvantaged people who had struggles and things like that, and we're supposed to root for the rich person who's kidnapped? I mean, I know that but yeah, I don't know.
It's
just
never
always
the rich, nasty people who are the villains, and they are the villains in real life. Mark needs Rebecca to pick out some clothes that she would wear because he's got a plan. Meanwhile, in the casino, Sixkiller is explaining to John Dalton who these kidnappers are when the phone rings. It's Mark, and he tells them to look out the window. But they are on the 50th floor or something, so what could they possibly see? I'll tell you, friends, a helicopter.
Yeah, it's pretty ballsy.
It's a pretty elaborate scheme.
Hover that thing right over this building with a bunch of witnesses.
At the perfect time involving the phone call, he knew which floor they were on and everything.
I feel like there's a lot of
impressed.
bickering to get the whole thing to work out. You can tell, though, this criminal syndicate has a lot going for it if they're this organized.
Mm-hmm. Well, he says, hey, here's your darling daughter. And he clutches Rebecca in his arms. I'm not satisfied with your cooperation. You need to take me more seriously. He then says goodbye and flings Rebecca out of the helicopter to the hard concrete below.
But we're only partially into
no.
the episode.
Yeah, no, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
She's dead.
Time to go home. Well, John Dalton and Sixkiller rush downstairs. They find a crowd murmuring around the corpse of Rebecca Dalton. Or just a mannequin dressed up as Rebecca Dalton.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think Wayne Newton's acting was that convincing that when he thought it was his daughter being flung out of a helicopter.
He was just kind of like, eh.
He seemed kind of like, oh, shit.
This is no good.
Oh, shit.
And then, almost impressed, I feel like there's a certain amount of being impressed that everyone is with the, I guess, colorfulness of the criminals and their ability to execute their little scheme here.
They're almost charmed, yeah.
Yeah, it involves a lot of elaborate instructions and things like that, and there's very little of the cops saying, we can't do what they say, which are usually in these sorts of episodes. I thought that was interesting.
That's how you get around it, man.
Yeah.
Well, Dalton covers to the crowd by saying, this is a bad publicity stunt from a disgruntled dancer who didn't make the team of my new variety show, and all of you have tickets to opening night. I thought it was kind of a good, very Wayne Newton kind of cover.
Yeah, and he had it ready, so you know that this isn't his first rodeo.
No.
Wayne Newton's actually had several times where his daughter's been kidnapped.
He has to have something in the back of his mind to cover at all times for the kidnapping, the eventual kidnapping. The crowd disperses, and Sixkiller finds a ransom note that reads, Tim Horn Cantina, payphone 305. Missed the call, and next time she falls for real. We get another motorcycle montage of Reno touring the open highway, complete with harmonica. And our hero pulls up to the curb in Baxter, Nevada, and whips out his 1994 cell phone, calls John Dalton and Sixkiller, and they tell him to head to a place called the Tim Horn Cantina, wait for a call, which Reno, being Reno, Renegade, himself, Vince Black, pretty much already at the Tim Horn Cantina.
Yeah.
He randomly stops somewhere, and it just happens to be right there.
Oh, that's good. So he's already there with time to spare. We've been told in the intro song he's real great at his job. So I would imagine there's nothing that could go wrong for Reno at this point.
No, this is going to be smooth sailing
Yeah.
from here on out.
Oh, I'm glad Rebecca's going to be safe.
He rides over to the payphone to wait when the Hell Wheels themselves pull up and Breezer starts admiring Renegade's flame-covered bike.
And these guys, the Hell Wheels are just total assholes from the go here.
Do you think that motorcycle gangs were like this at any point? Because they're painted like this.
I can't imagine that.
No,
I
right?
actually made the note, why are motorcycle gangs supposed to be so intimidating in TV shows like this? Because really it's just criminals and you hear their little vroom, vroom, vroom on a bike. Is that supposed to make it worse that they're driving a motorcycle? Honestly, the idea that they're a criminal is the main idea. So why
Well, they wear black leather, though.
Why is it? What is it about the motorcycle part that's like, fuck, don't mess with them? Now, if it was just a run-of-the-mill criminal, yeah, I'm not that scared. Put him on a bike, fuck.
Is the
Let me get them
implication
away.
there that it's because this person must be like a daredevil, or at least back then?
Yeah,
they're not afraid.
They take risks, man.
Yeah.
They're on a bike. And of
So
course,
who knows what they'll do?
Oh, yeah, fun fact, too. California passed a mandatory helmet law for motorcycles the year after Renegade started. However, they'd already done a season, and it would make sense for a guy who's on the lam anyway to be wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
So they continued filming motorcycle scenes without helmets, but they were stopped dozens of times by the police, and Lorenzo Lamas had to explain, no, I'm on Renegade, I'm on a TV show.
Lorenzo Lamas had to flash his own badge.
He had to whip open his shirtless vest and show them what
It
he
was
had.
actually sewn into his chest hair.
Oh, he does have a tattoo on his right shoulder of, he was like a matador riding a unicorn or something like that.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, kind of amazing. Breezer really likes Reno's bike, even if the tank's a little gaudy for his taste as a highly discerning man. Breezer asks if Reno wants to sell the bike, but of course he doesn't. Breezer says, hey, it sure could be a nice hoss if someone put some work into it. And Reno tries to make conversation, saying, hey, you got a bike of your own? Breezer says, I think I'm looking at it. He extends a hand to rub his meaty paw on the bike, and Reno slaps it away, which just pisses Breezer off even more and reveals he's going to steal it. The bikers jump Reno, and although he puts up a fight, they got him 20-1, like Spencer hinted at, and eventually they get the upper hand. Reno tells them he just needs his bag, which has his clothes in it, and being the discerning man that he is, Breezer starts to take the bag off the bike to give it to him, but a random other biker says he's always wanted a bag like that and that they should keep it. So Breezer looks at Reno and says, sorry, buddy, kicks him unconscious, and then the biker gang heads off with the phone ringing in the background. He missed the call.
He missed the call, which means Rebecca could die. I have a couple of things I need to say, and
Go
one
ahead.
of them is that, look, Wayne Newton John Dalton is so rich that at this point, I mean, you got to answer that call. I know there's a lot of bike pride at stake, but if you're Lorenzo Lamas, you just say, here, take the bike.
Mm-hmm.
You answer the phone. You easily get your, $10,000 bike replaced. This guy repeatedly draws out $2 million.
He just handed you $2 million. You're
Yeah.
a stranger to him.
$2 million, which is now in the hands of fucking Breezer.
And by the way, longtime listeners know this, I have horrible hearing. I watch shows for the most part with the captions on so I can make sure I know what's going on. They captioned his name as Razor 2 or 3 times, but then every other time was Breezer. So it could have been Razor. IMDb doesn't even have a
I'm certain
name.
that it's probably Razor, but I really like this Breezer thing a lot better.
Here's what my thought is they called him Razor until Max, played by Jan Michael Vincent, screwed up and called him Breezer. He 100% called him Breezer at least once. And I think then they're like, well, we can't tell
gotta
that guy
roll
what
with
to
it.
do. He's Breezer now.
We've got Jan Michael Vincent.
Star of Airwolf. Once he finally comes to, Renegade calls up John Dalton and Six Killer and says that he's got bad news and worse news. He missed the call because some bikers attacked him and they took his bike.
I love that part, how it ends, too. And I made a note here. This is exactly how that Breaking Bad episode ended. Where it was like the phone ringing and Walt can't get to it and he's laughing hysterically and it's super dramatic.
Mhm.
It was just like that.
Wasn't he in the basement or
Yes,
he installed a water
I
heater
think
or
it was
something?
something about
Space.
like his money's gone. Like
It's
Yeah.
where the money was, and Skylar took it to give to Ted.
That's right.
something like that, yeah. And there was that horrible ringing sound at the end of the episode while Walt just laughs maniacally. And I was thinking when I heard the payphone just ring, I was like, this is where Breaking Bad got that idea.
Thankfully,
Same
though, Reno Raines, unlike Walter White, he doesn't actually feel much from this. When he's calling to tell Six Killer that he missed the call, he's like, "Oh, hey man, I missed the call." That's essentially his attitude about
Yeah,
it.
this very powerful person. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah, your daughter might I don't know how to tell you. I guess you might be dead now.
Also, I lost all that money. Or whatever, it's $2 million.
That's the best part, too, is like, oh, and yeah, by the way, I also lost the $2 million.
There's not an aspect of this job I succeeded in.
Say my name. We next find Breezer and a pal, just some random biker talking with some other bikers. It turns out they're looking for the Aussies to exact their revenge when another motorcycle comes up, a 1,000th different motorcycle, and it's Max from earlier, Jan Michael Vincent.
Oh.
They explain to him, hey, we've got troubles to fix.
You boys are a little lost, aren't you? Town's that way.
Yeah, we know. We had a little set to with this down under dude. Jumped us. Trashed my bike.
So you figure you'd teach him a few manners, huh?
Damn straight.
Let's go.
First, we gotta find him. He's driving a drop-top Jeep. He was headed down Mill Road.
I spotted one of those turning on a ranch road a couple miles back.
Lead the way.
Lou, bring the other guys.
You got it.
I had to include the noise there. Oh, but first, have you got any of that meth that I like a lot of?
It helps me drive a little faster.
Now, back at the abandoned barnyard, the Australians are pissed that no one picked up the phone, and Mark and Bobby start saying, maybe Daddy doesn't think Rebecca's worth $2 million.
Again.
Then the sounds of motorcycles interrupt the conversation. The Aussies grab their guns and find Max, Breezer, and the rest of the motorcycle gang lined up outside the compound with guns drawn. Mark tells them to get the hell out of here, and there's a great American joke here, by the way, with Max asking, why all the guns? And Mark responds with, well, we heard America was dangerous. Kinda right.
This is their second one, because they called us an amusement park earlier.
Yep.
Both those things are accurate.
Max tells Breezer that they need to call it off, and the gang fires up their bikes and takes off. The last to leave is Breezer, of course, and he takes a couple of pot shots at Mark, and Mark returns the fire.
Why did...
Stupid.
Why?
You're really asking why Breezer chose to do something?
I know that this is a character named Breezer who's just wild, but essentially it's another situation where after it happens, Max has to be the voice of reason and say, whoa, man, you're a little out of control.
Mm-hmm. Ways down the road, Breezer is hooting and hollering while Max is asking
just on to no end.
Yeah, just going crazy. You know what? This guy, Alistair something or other, the actor's name, really took the role and ran with it.
Yeah,
he decided,
he did.
I'm going to have fun, and I'll give him credit. He looks like
he
he had a lot of
time.
fun. Max is then asking him, what the hell is your deal? Turns out Mark hit Max's bike a few times with some bullets, and they see some holes in Reno's bag, and Breezer looks in, discovering the $2 million inside.
Breezer, old buddy. You been holding out on us?
Needless to say, Breezer's excited.
If you thought the freak out from before from Breezer was a lot, this one goes on and on.
That one makes sense, at least, because he'd had time to count the $2 million. The initial whistle was just like, that's a lot of money. And then in that 15, 20 seconds,
he's a savant.
That's how fast Breezer can count that $2 million. It's like, fuck.
Let's see, these are bundles of $100 bills each, and there appear to be
now divide it up between us.
Based on the
this is enough for Sarah to go to college.
The volume of which money is carried in this bag, which could
now don't forget about inflation.
This is 1994 after all.
Do you have any more of that meth?
This is clearly a man who's never seen a $20 bill in his life. He's never seen anything that high. Mark then has Rebecca call John Dalton and read from a script explaining that she's okay, but that her captors are impatient and want the money at the same spot, the Tim Horn Cantina, at 6 p.m. And if it doesn't happen, he will never get to see his daughter
But he
again.
might, because this is like 4 times they've said he won't get to see her again
I
already.
do like how Wayne Newton just hangs up at the end of that when she says, like, this will be the last time we ever talk. And he's like,
yeah, he's like, whatever.
Oh, no. He just hangs up the phone, doesn't say anything to her. Like, well, if so, here's how I want this to end. Just hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of menopausal panties to wetten.
There was also a moment earlier on when Six Killer's explaining to Wayne Newton what happened to the other kids who've been kidnapped across the world. And the first case, they reveal the ransom was paid, the kid returned. The next case, Six Killer goes, ransom unpaid, Victim returned. And Wayne Newton's like, oh, okay, cool. So what do they have to fear at this point? I mean,
I
sure,
don't know.
it's
They always seem to
nerve-wracking,
return
but
the victim. I do think it's cool. Does this gang have like a baseball card with stats on the back or something? I don't know how they know all this.
I wish they did.
They know about the successful and unsuccessful ransom attempts.
Well, if you're part of Ransom Weekly magazine, you understand what's going on. Reno's shirtless but vested again now, and we hear him on the phone with Six Killer when Bobby says he can't get there in time, but he does have the money. Reno's, of course, there, but doesn't have the money.
Man, it's always something,
A
right?
conundrum. They decide to just answer the phone, play it by ear. Reno spots his bike, though, so if he can get to his bag, maybe this will all be taken care of. The money might still be in there. As he sneaks up to his old bike, Breezer reveals he was waiting for Reno and has a shotgun aimed right at his meaty chest. Reno says, listen, there's going to be a phone call in a moment, and I need to answer the phone. It's a big deal, and I would appreciate if you would let me have my wishes. I just hate how bland he is.
He's so bad. And also, why does he a second time and he's like, I'll just try to apply some reason with this biker gang.
Breezer.
Yeah, Breezer clearly is a man not of pure chaos, but of rational thought.
Well, Breezer, of course, says there's no way you're getting away after I found that bag full of money. And just then Max comes out and sees Breezer holding up Reno, and he smacks him away, saying, this is the guy you stole the bike from? You dumbass, he's the man who saved my life. The phone rings and Reno bolts for it. He has to answer it. He does. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? And boom, gun comes out of nowhere, and it's Mark. Mark takes Renegade into custody, and the scene fades.
Oh, man. They had another plan.
You know what else is going to fade this podcast as we take a quick break, and when we get back, more bikers, more Breezer. We come back to Mark having tied up Reno in the barn and asking him, what's the deal? What's the deal? The two discuss what's up, and Reno demands to see Rebecca. Once he sees she's fine, he says, give me my phone, I'll get your money. Reno concocts a plan where he calls Bobby Six Killer, and when he answers, Reno says, Max, is that you? Max? Max, have you answered the phone, Max? And Bobby Six Killer is oblivious for a few moments, but then he finally kind of figures it out. Yes, Max, here's what you need to do. Leave the money behind the Tim Horn Cantina in the dumpster. Well, Six Killer makes his way into the Tim Horn Cantina, where he's met with quite the sight. Fegrin Dan and the Modal Nodes are playing their hit song, Mad About Me, as aliens of all types and sizes laugh, drink, and joke with each other while Han Solo sits in the corner looking for work. I need to get to Alderaan, says Six Killer, and I need to avoid any Imperial incidents, if you catch my drift. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
It was totally worth it.
Every time I hear Cantina, I can't not think of
me
that.
too. That's just etched in my brain now. I also wanted to really quick say that one of these scenes between the kidnappers and Wayne Newton, where they're calling back and forth, there's a dissolve between the bar and Wayne Newton's office where it just goes straight into his belly to start the scene, and I just thought it was really funny.
It all hands down and fades.
It's so weird. I wondered if they just didn't edit it right. I don't know.
Yeah, they planned on doing something else but couldn't figure out a flourish to end the thing with.
Let's look at his belly. He's famous.
It's got to be a cool belly.
He's got $2 million.
Maybe there's a gym in that belly. What? Swap out again. What if Wayne Newton were one of the gyms?
I hope Wayne Newton can't merge with anyone else.
Ooh, fuse. Now, Six Killer does walk into the cantina, and he asks for Max when, well, Max shows up. He says, what do you want? And this scene fades out, presumably into a belly. And back at the barn, we get our first really good look at Mark's tiny but muscular goon. This is the guy I mentioned earlier. He's been in the background this whole time. He drove the van at the very beginning of the episode.
You're right. He is very tiny and very muscular.
The goon says, everything's clear, eh? And Bobby asks, hey, what's the next move? Just then, they're interrupted by the sounds of some cool motorcycles heading their way.
Yeah.
And they take up their guns and head out to stop the biker gang.
He sends him right back out there. He's like, get back out there and, die.
Come on, goon, take care of this.
You're disposable.
As soon as the goon steps out of the barn, the bullets begin to pepper it behind him, and he jumps into action, firing at the bikers. But it's all for naught, as despite his small stature, Breezer's aim is second to none, and he's riddled with a hail of bullets.
Yep.
No more goon. R.I.P. Goon.
Goon is gone.
He does that really funny thing, too, in some of these kinds of shows where they get shot and then they throw themselves in the direction
launches like 5 feet
like
backwards.
after he gets shot. Like you can see the bullet.
There's enough
land in his
delay
chest.
between the impact and then the jump.
And then
Just kinda
he'll
trembles.
leap wherever the bullet should have sent him. It's great.
There's a whole hell of a lot of chaos here with the 2 Australians firing at the Hell Wheels as the bikers return their fire. Some Hell Wheels are hit. We see a fat Hummer barrel through the field, and Six Killer pops out alongside Max. They've got their guns raised. They're ready to save the day.
This is when those two openly discuss how they're going to have a competition to see who can die for Reno first.
in the middle of a gunfight
Yeah.
with bullets flying all around them the whole time.
And then Max makes a good bid to win right away.
He does. Six Killer says, hey, cover me. But Max valiantly says, I owe that man my life.
I'd like to give it to him right now.
If I get shot, I'll just be right back where I was. And he takes off for the barn. After taking out a biker, Bobby heads to the area where Reno and Rebecca are, tells them to get their asses in gear, and she holds them at gunpoint. Unfortunately for her, Mark yells, move, and she gets distracted, allowing Reno to snag the gun from her hand, and Rebecca straight up nails her in the face with both fists, crumpling her to the floor. Mark tells Reno to drop the gun. He does. He doesn't want the girl to get shot. He doesn't care about himself. He's selfless. He's Renegade.
Just like Max.
But he wants to, he wants to protect Rebecca, so he puts the gun down, pushes Rebecca behind him, and Mark goes, you just made my job a lot easier. 2 birds with 1 stone. You know what a spider is in Australia? It's a mixed drink, a cocktail. It's a little bit
Meanwhile,
of a
we
slang
don't
term.
have beds.
As he prepares to pull the trigger, behind him, Max bursts through the front door and fires a line that digs far deeper than any bullet ever could. Do you guys remember what he yells?
No.
He yells, hey, you shrimp-eating alligator! No joke, that is what he yells at Mark. Mark turns around, of course, and despite being called that, manages to still pull the trigger, shoots Max right in the gut. But this gives Reno the opening he needs, and he smacks the gun out of Mark's hand and engages him in hand-to-hand combat. Reno gets the upper hand here. He punches Mark in the armpit a couple of times. And then using the coup de grace of his arsenal, the roundhouse kick,
Oh, I noticed that.
he takes Mark down in one swift spin.
Yeah.
Reno rushes then to Max to see if he's okay, and it looks like he's going to make it. They say the bullet missed his liver, but he's had worse. Anyway.
I love that part because they're all just laughing as this guy's bleeding.
This is hilarious, and he just got
wildly.
and he's pretty excited that he got shot.
Yeah,
I mean, he really
and
enjoyed it.
But a guy like that would brag endlessly about it.
In the moment, though, he's like, I know what my liver is, and it didn't hit it. So he knows it's not his vital organ, and they're all just kind of, you got shot, but it's all right. It's just hilarious in the moment. They're just all chuckling about this
I'm telling
gunshot.
you right now, in a way, this version of Max bravado is not that different from House's bravado of being like, I died technically.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of thing. Anyway, Renegade better think about how he's going to repay Max now. That's what Max has to say. Ha ha ha. Everyone has a good laugh. We fade out.
Yeah. How's he going to repay him, I wonder?
We'll see.
Oh.
John Dalton is back at the casino when the door opens, and Rebecca rushes in and gives Wade Newton a big ol' hug. Were you creeped out by this a little bit? Because they also showed it from behind Wayne Newton, and she's a much smaller woman, and they're holding each other,
Smaller
embracing
than
each other.
Wayne Newton, huh?
And she starts moaning. It just, the sound did not gel well with that scene.
It was a little weird, but I mean, again, this is Renegade.
Reno and Six Killer are close in tow, and they've got bags full of cash with them. Six Killer reveals it's pretty much all of the $4 million, minus $50,000 for the Hell Wheels.
Yeah, that's
What
the
a
great
deal.
thing there. He's like, here's your last $2 million
The way
back.
they presented it,
Yeah, and then here's the other $2 million, except minus this, and this, and it's like basically there's nothing in that bag. Like we spent the other $2 million, but here's the first $2 million.
They said it's minus the $50,000 for the Hell Wheels and some miscellaneous expenses.
Which has got to be like $2 per person in the Hell Wheels.
Apparently, yeah. John Dalton thanks both of them, of course, and off they go. Walking out the front of the casino, Reno presses Six Killer as to how he did convince the Hell Wheels that $50,000 was enough. Six Killer says, it wasn't me, it was Max. He's a man of honor.
That's driven home a lot. Max hangs out with guys with Confederate flag do-rags and things like that, but he's a man of honor.
Admittedly not politically correct, I'm sure says plenty of slurs.
Does he hang out with Sergeant Major Jackson?
Probably.
He might. I could see that for sure. And anyway, it wasn't just the $50,000. He also agreed to give the Hell Wheels a new location for their annual disgusting biker retreat, the fabulous Babylon Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas.
I do like that this intimidating biker band here, they have annual retreats and matching uniforms.
Yes, they're sweet. They're really nice, but they're also deadly.
It made me want to join a motorcycle gang. When I saw that, it was like, oh, if it's that way.
And they support one another.
Yeah.
I would like nothing more than to forever not be an employee of this hotel the week that they have this retreat.
Ooh,
that's all these guys are rude and then go, I'm just not being PC when I take a shit on the floor and tell the help to clean it up.
That's why I'm going to join the motorcycle gang, because I don't want to work. It's one or the other. Either have to work at the hotel or join the gang. I'm going to join the gang.
Of the two, if you can't beat them, join them, I guess.
It's like, do you want to be with the wait staff or do you want to be a vagabond? Tough decision. Well, we get one final little bit here, which brings to mind one last question as we wrap up this episode. And that question, my friends,
is it?
Who do you love? Because George Thorogood and the Hot Dogs decide to play their favorite song. But just that little snippet, same little snippet as bikers arrived at the hotel, presumably bullet-riddled bikers. But they're there. It's annual
and the
retreat
answer
time.
is Bobby Sixkiller. That's who I love. We get to see him in his true form this whole episode, and he is a delight.
He is a delight.
He wears a choker for a lot of the episode, and the previous episode when we see the good version.
Now,
it's kind of strange.
When I watched the pilot, I watched the pilot and I think maybe one other episode in season 1, but it wasn't towards the early end of it. In the pilot, they really hammer home the Native American thing to the point where he calls anyone not himself, because he's the only not white person in the show, tenderfoot.
Ugh.
And then talks about wampums. He tells Native American jokes, no joke. And it's to diffuse the tension in the scenes. But I feel like at some point he or someone was like, okay, look, we can still play up the Native American thing because it's 1994, but maybe let's ease off the just going full hand for it.
Like there are other jokes you can tell.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of improvement, but he was still charismatic and goofy and in his turquoise suits and all that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, interesting.
I liked him. He's a good guy.
So that does it for Renegade, for at least the
What
plot
a journey
synopsis.
we've been on.
Do you guys have any other questions about Renegade that perhaps I could answer?
I don't even know if questions would...
Yeah, I don't know if we could call it a question.
Would do it justice. A couple things I was wondering is like, and these aren't exact questions, but who is this for? Like, did it clearly succeeded. It had a lot of episodes, 110 episodes across 5 years.
Well, I'll tell you exactly who it's for, and I told you this previously. I don't think Spencer knows this. Growing up in southern Missouri, there were no other kids in my neighborhood except one, and his name was Quentin, and we were friends because we were the only kids in the neighborhood. He was a few years older than me, and he lived a couple houses down the street. His parents were the most just biker hippies you've ever seen in your life. His dad, did you ever meet his parents?
Yes.
Okay, Roger was his dad's name. And he was missing the tip of his pointer finger on one hand. And he would take that thing. And remember, I was 40 pounds when I was 15 or whatever.
That's probably somehow like mostly true.
And he would ram it in between your ribs to tickle you. And it was the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life.
That was his finisher, in fact.
Pretty much. His mom, Jeannie, was just a hippie biker chick. And they would kick us out of their house if I happened to be there, Quentin happened to be there, so they could get high and watch Renegade. Now, neither of us knew what get high was at the time.
They didn't just let you partake in that activity.
If they would have known, if they could hear this now, I'm going to get in touch with them.
30 years later, I am going to get high and watch Renegade.
There was actually a moment in one of these episodes. I wish I'd written it down. Someone uses that hippie as an insult sort of thing, like get that hippie away from me or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I remembered, because I'm wondering when I saw that, I was like, when did that stop becoming an insult? Because
Never.
That would have been like
Midwest.
the early 90s or whatever. So I guess it was close enough at that point where it was like, let's make sure no one's ever becomes a hippie. So that was still on everyone's mind. But there was a line, and I think it was about Reno.
It might have been because of his hair.
Get this hippie away. Yeah. Get this hippie away from me.
Sometimes I'll hear someone in earnest use hippie as an insult.
Still?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Like something like, like a dirty hippie or something. And I want to just stop the person and be like, where are you from? When are you from? What are you doing with your life?
1972. The other thing with it is I think South Park probably, I don't know, from one point I could be like, well, maybe they put an end to that because they made it too obnoxious to do it, because Cartman's thing was, hippies, like early seasons of South Park when it was just terrible. Like, it didn't get that great, but there were shining moments periodically. But that was pushed then, and I feel like a lot of kids I went to school with picked up from South
Yeah,
Park.
there was
Could be it
definitely a
just
renaissance of that.
Keeps going, yeah.
So I think then after that, people got sick of it, and then we realized hippies aren't bad or whatever.
Yeah, and
so.
I think I don't know. It rings, people insulting hippies also really rings of our current times in a sense of like, ew. Like, the idea that someone's not playing ball the American way or whatever.
Forward-thinking people are dangerous.
Yeah, so we've got to debase them and make them feel lesser than.
So anyway, Quentin's
Anyway,
parents,
we're talking about Renegade and Quentin and your friend Quentin's parents.
And Renegade's a hippie. I'm going to call Reno a Renegade now. Apparently.
Renegade.
Well, that's who the Renegade was for. Any other questions about the show?
Was he a hippie?
I don't think he's a hippie. He's conservative.
Was he good at his job?
Well, he's damn good at his job until he crossed the wrong cops.
He committed the ultimate sin.
So this is a legitimate question. Do you know if there are ever any, say, character traits that Reno develops?
No, I think he's just a blank canvas there for slathering whatever thing you want on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. No, I haven't seen any charisma or any, as you said, character traits or any defining personality come out in the 6 or 7 episodes
This is
I watched.
one of the
how the number
more-
went up a little bit when I said that?
Reno Reigns is one of the more puzzling lead characters of any show we've done so far to me.
Puzzling is the word you use for this.
I can't quite figure out who he is.
At one point, I expect him to say something philosophical, and at the other point, I expect him to get up and pout.
Yeah, and like you said, Van, his vocal tone being so uneven and often uninspired.
I
that
mean,
I
he's
just
not
don't
a
know
line reader, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I did like the part where he got emotional with Bobby. Six Killer came back to his real form, and he was like, "Oh my God, you are my friend, and you're here." And he hugged him, and it was real legit in that moment. You know, he hugged him, and Bobby was like, "What are you doing? What was that about?" But they had that little moment there where he was like, "I'm glad you're in my world." In the last episode we talked about, not this one, but yeah, they had that little moment there where that was the most humanity we saw.
That's true. We did see in that episode a little bit of friendship value.
Changed my mind. He's heartwarming. He's one of the best lead characters of any television show
Let's give
ever.
him some kind of, what are the TV awards? Emmys? Let's give him one. Let's give him an Emmy.
I will say these were really easy to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mind a bit, yeah.
These were nuts the whole time.
They kind of just fly by as you're going through it.
Even the filler scenes, they're all motorcycle scenes with dumb songs, and there's usually something weird happening in the background.
Something to laugh at. Yeah, exactly. Now, Lorenzo Lamas, by the way, Lamas, I never remember, and I switch in my head and out my mouth.
In my head and out my mouth, which is part of your head.
He is available on Cameo for $80. So for $80, you can get a personalized video for Lorenzo Lamas.
Okay, well,
I'll consider it.
We should
I guess we
pool
could
our
all. Yeah, I was gonna
resources.
say we could all go in on that.
Maybe next month's ad revenue, I'll just put all of that. Sorry, Jeff, I can't pay you.
We're gonna backdoor Cameo ourselves into an accidental interview with Lorenzo Lamas about.
Well, that would probably be worth it.
Oh, it would totally
I
be
would
worth
probably pay $80 just to interview that guy.
I wonder if Branscombe Richmond is on Cameo. I'll have to look it up.
Oh, no, then I'm in for sure, and I'm willing to pay upwards of $10.
Okay, the only other thing I want to say about the show Renegade is that they filmed a canonical ending. Because again, syndication, the idea was that these shows can be viewed in any order.
Yeah.
It won't make a difference.
And it sure seems that way.
Yeah, and there might be overarching plot points. Dutch Dixon, of course, is after him. They filmed a finale where he finally redeems himself. They catch Dutch or kill him or something or other. And Lamas said that they never aired it because they were too afraid networks would be afraid to buy the show because there's a finale point. So there never was a finale for that show. There was a final episode, but nothing was.
Did they reveal what happens in the would have happened?
No, nothing. It's just like a normal episode. He rides off in the sunset.
I guess Six Killer Enterprises becomes publicly traded.
Could be, and he becomes the next John Dalton.
Woo! John Dalton
that's
becomes
depressing.
president.
I wanted to believe in humanity. Come on, you guys, don't take that away from me.
So that was Renegade. I found it fascinating. I really enjoyed doing that this week. This was probably my favorite show that I've covered, and I liked House.
I was going to say more than House.
I liked House, but this was fun to do. Like, House is entertaining at a steady level. I might get sick of this over time pretty easily, but I really enjoyed doing
Yeah,
this.
if someone's like, sit down and watch a couple of Renegade episodes, that's just a lot of fun because what are they? Again, they're just nuts and they're there for the fireworks, so to speak. And that is not a 4th of July pun because it's not the 4th of July, it's past the middle of July, and we are, as we record this, and we're still hearing fireworks here and there.
That kind of brings to mind a debate I've seen online, and that's of, it's currently Riff Tracks, the guys from Mystery Science Theater 3000, the guys that make fun of movies, the robots, and they're in the theater anyway. One of my favorite shows, if not my favorite show of all time. Riff Tracks does that still, and they'll do it for new movies that come out, like Avengers or whatever, but they also have video on demand of old movies just like MST3K that they do. People suggest movies that they want them to riff at different times, and there's a huge subset of fans who think just bad movies in general are perfect for it, and that doesn't quite work in some cases. For example, like Sharknado to me is boring.
Yes,
Sharknado
totally.
as a movie, they know they're making a shitty movie. They want to make it as stupid and as outlandish as possible. The great movies to riff and make fun of are the ones who take themselves seriously.
Yeah, movies that are actually trying to accomplish their own goals, whatever those goals are, and then for whatever the reason, when you look at the movie trying to accomplish those goals, it just looks wrong.
Yes. And so the Renegade plays into that in the sense of this is a bad movie that's worth riffing. There may be worse movies out there or stupider movies out there, but they might not take themselves as seriously as Renegade, and they were a little loose with things, but you can tell they still want to make their thing. They're
Renegade
still telling their
is
story.
very much in the vein of, which is a rich vein of, good, bad stuff to watch from the 80s and 90s that's just very action-based. A lot of action and excess and over-the-top gestures, things like that. And all of that stuff is fun to watch because it knows that it's not 100% serious, but it doesn't quite understand its failings in the ways that it isn't also.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that's how I felt about Renegade. But
Yeah.
I think we've talked enough about motorcycles for now. We may start talking motorcycles next week, depending on what Spencer has to say, because he's choosing our
when
next
Spencer
project.
nominates Sons of Anarchy.
I don't think we are going to be talking about motorcycles that much, but I do have something
that
interesting.
much.
Like, well, you guys can probably bring it up.
We can shoehorn them in.
I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up, obviously, on what we're doing, and you have the entire time period to prepare for it. So that's on you. If you want to talk about motorcycles again next week, that's on you guys.
Vroom, vroom.
So,
No,
look.
you did it wrong. It's keep talking.
No.
Obnoxious.
I hope you actually just put that sound in there too, like you did with the what was the zebra sound that you actually did?
Yeah,
that was amazing. I laughed out loud.
I forgot to text you
I
about
laughed
that. That was
out
great.
loud when I heard that because I was like, "Is he actually going to do it?" Then it was like,
I looked it up and it was a scary ass noise. I had to put it in there.
Yeah, I was like, "Is that real?" I could not believe that. One thing I don't want to be is a liar. And in our introduction episode where we introduced ourselves, we all said what we were going to do.
This is so weird, Spencer, because I thought of this today.
Yeah,
I didn't go back and listen to it, but
I haven't either, but I remember what I said.
I remember thinking there were shows mentioned that we definitely have not covered.
Absolutely. I said...
There's only one I can think of.
Yeah, you said one you didn't do too. I'll call you out on it later.
I did say Alpha.
Okay, good job on that part.
I have
said
no
Columbo.
idea what I said.
I said Columbo and shows like Saved by the Bell.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. We've done shows like Saved by the Bell. And I was thinking, I think we kind of covered that. So I can't really... I can't say that we didn't do that. I'm sort of absolved of any guilt. But I'm thinking I kind of have to do what I said. However... I've got something different here in mind for us. This is going to be an interesting experiment for us.
California Dream.
We're going back to a show we already did. I know, and yeah.
It's going to happen one day.
20 episodes in, we're like, we're out of material. We got to go back.
There's
like,
only 10
podcast
shows.
is over. No, we are going to do Saved by the Bell, but we're doing one of the original and one of the reboot.
Excellent.
So we're going to take a look at one of each and compare them.
By reboot, do you mean the college years or whatever?
No. The
like
very
last
recent
year.
reboot with we talked about this a few times. It's
okay.
it's supposed to be. I don't know enough about the characters yet.
Are they
but
in school still?
yeah, well, it's the kids.
Oh,
it's Zach's kids. Mac, right? Is that what his name is?
I don't
Max
remember. It looks like Zach, though.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's not actually his kid, but it's supposed to be the next generation.
Okay.
So it's a more modern Saved by
Like
the
Star
Bell.
Trek. They do Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is the next generation.
Is it like that?
I
I
don't
don't think
have a
so.
clue.
I don't
Patrick
think so.
Stewart's in it.
Yeah, he's definitely in both of these. So we're gonna watch one of both. They're both on Peacock. The original is actually on Hulu as well, but the reboot is Peacock exclusive, actually. That's like, I think Peacock is sort of hitching their star to that, which is like we rebooted Saved by the Bell. So you might as well just go to Peacock for both. Plus, you can watch it for free there. You do have to watch commercials, but who cares?
Not me. I pay that fee. I can't have commercials interrupting
By the
my
way,
house.
did you guys...
Yeah, if I was, I swear to God, if I was watching a wrestling pay-per-view and commercials popped
That's bullshit. Yeah,
I'd be done.
Did you... you might have the Amazon that doesn't have commercials, or maybe they don't. I don't know. But I got massively long commercials while trying to watch Renegade.
Really?
I watched it on Tubi.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Oh, okay. I went on Amazon for mine. And
Blessed Tubi.
Tubi's
Get a hold
the
of us,
best.
Tubi.
Tubi has commercials too, though.
Yeah, they did.
But not like
reasonable.
Amazon's.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Have you guys used Amazon lately? I don't mean to
Just
derail
for
this too much.
Christian movies.
It's terrible. It's the worst platform, and they have the longest commercials ever. And I think it's Jeff Bezos' fault.
I'm sure it is.
He's not
'cause
even
the
he's not
worst.
even there anymore.
No.
But still, like,
He's got to get to space.
Yeah.
I was disgusted. It's like there were like 4 commercial breaks of like a minute and a half.
In Renegade? Wow.
Yes, in Renegade.
They're like, people are going to watch this. They
And
won't turn it off.
They didn't even put them in the right spots. It was like, this isn't where the break goes in Renegade. I was getting mad.
You broke
But
your
anyway.
television.
Yeah, so like I got that out of my system. These are all on Peacock. You can find the originals on Hulu if you so desire. But we're going to start with season 3, episode 6, Blind Dates in the original show. And this is the synopsis here. I tried to do a similar thing with both shows here. Zach tries to cope when he ends up with 2 dates for the same night.
Cope?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what they're going for, but
Well,
it sounds
he's-
like he's like distraught. He's like, oh
he's
no.
knee deep in all that pussy. Jesse agrees to a blind date is the B plot of that one. So we've got both things going on there. So now season 1, episode 3, I picked a free one. No matter what streaming option you picked, you can watch this for free on Peacock for the reboot. It's the Bayside Triangle. And this one is after a theft at Bayside, a Douglas student becomes a suspect. Mac and Jamie fall for the same girl. That's the B plot in that one. So I figured we've got a little bit of love triangle in both of these.
A classic sitcom thing. Love
Yeah.
triangles.
Yeah, and I picked there's 5 seasons of the original Saved by the Bell, so I picked one right in the middle because they're babies in the first one and they're like, our age in the
Old
last
people in
one.
the last
Not
one.
really, but it seems that way. They age so much.
By the
so
time they meet Leah Remini in the Hawaiian years or whatever,
I would
they're
have
pretty
loved
old.
to have found the one that she was in, but that's too much work. So yeah, I figure this way we can make me not a liar from my promise in our introduction, and we can kind of go about it a different way. So we can contrast between new and old here. It's some way to kind of do that, and it'll keep things light because again, I have picked way too heavy episodes for most of this, so I have to be careful and make sure I pick stupid things for a
Well,
little
and
bit.
Van too, today especially, picking a very heavy episode that dealt with themes like
And Wayne
kidnapping,
Newton.
Motorcycling,
motorcycle. Yeah,
breezer.
there's a lot of the word "kill" is said a ton.
but it's said
partially
a couple of times.
Part of
too.
someone's name.
I didn't even wait for you to finish, and I said, "And Wayne Newton." Like you hadn't even started yet, and I was like, "And Wayne Newton."
One of the serious issues of our time.
So yeah, we'll be going into that next week. I will try my best to make sure it doesn't get a little. I don't want to. We've done so many Saved by the Bell ish things that I don't want to overdo it, but we're gonna try our best to make sure it's fresh and new.
All right,
And,
there you go. Saved by the Bell.
yeah,
Looking forward to it.
I'm ready.
So if you want to follow along with us, check out those 2 episodes. Again, season 3, episode 6, Blind Dates during the original run. And in the, I wrote restart, not reboot. In the reboot version, we have season 1, episode 3, Bayside Triangle, which to me, when you said that, I thought like Bermuda Triangle.
it does
I was
seem like that.
Ooh, they're going to be shipwrecked somewhere. They aren't, but that's okay. Check it out on, what'd you say, Peacock?
Yeah, everything goes on Peacock.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you once again for listening to these Renegade episodes. These are by far the longest episodes we've done, and I apologize to both of you for that. I knew I wanted to get too much of this stuff in there, but here we are. We still managed to slog through an hour and a half through each
Yeah,
one.
I would just go ahead and cut half of it out and just leave it there for everyone to figure out.
But we are available on Twitter. I am at Manly Van Lee Spencer. Who are you?
I'm at the number 3 French_hen.
We don't care about Brian. We're also at Boob Tube Boys. No, tell him, Brian.
Oh, at Loud Guitar Brian.
At Boob Tube Boys is our show account. Check all of us out. Give us a follow. Give us a heart. Give us whatever you want to do on Twitter. Send us memes.
Yeah.
Tell us you really liked Breezer or you really hated Breezer. just let us know
Any
about Breezer.
Breezer content is welcome.
We're also on Instagram at Boob Tube Boys. We have a very own website, boobtubeboys.com, where you have access to all the cool stuff that we write and will be writing. It will be getting pretty cool before long. And finally, there's the other thing that's important that is not in my brain. Patreon.com/Bootu Inc. If you really like this show, head on over to that website there, give us your money, and you will get access to free bonus content. It's not free, you're paying for it at this point. We'll call it free bonus content, though.
Once you pay, it's free.
Exactly. So what
the
did we do
money's
this
already
week?
gone.
What did we do this week?
We talked about... I can't remember either. I've totally lost it. What did we talk about?
Creepypastas.
Oh, yeah. We read horror stories this week.
And one of us read a horror story in his, quote, native accent.
Maybe.
And it wasn't
That's
me.
true. That's true.
No, we'll
It
just
was
have
Spencer.
to. You'll just have to turn in. You'll just have to tune in and find out.
That's right. So once again, patreon.com/Bootu Inc. Give us $2 or more per month and you'll get access to all the cool stuff on there. So for Brian and Spencer, I'm Van Lee, and it's time to leave Renegade.